Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership, their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business.
We see this problem in a lot of our customers. Here's how our customers are solving that problem. And potentially here's how we solve that problem. That is way more inspiring of a story to kind of like help rally not just salespeople, but customers around what you're doing.
I have the privilege of chatting with Phil Pilalas. He's the Director of Marketing at MyCarrier. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So from what I've read on you and what I've got to know about you, in our first conversation is you love data. You have an SEO and paid search background. Take a lot of joy in both building and managing and empowering cross-functional teams, as well as building marketing systems that actually do something, that actually generate some sort of business result. It became quite clear on our previous conversation that you have a passion for this, that you're a bit of a marketing nerd, and you've learned some things along the way to best position, in this case, MyCarrier now, the company you're working for, and best empower them or position them for success as well as your team. So really excited to learn a little bit about your unique experience and perspectives on playing this game of marketing and marketing leadership. So welcome to the show. Love it.
Yeah. I enjoy marketing. It is a saying that being a marketing nerd it might be an understatement. Like I think about it a lot. I wake up with, like ideas and concepts and things like that, but I enjoy it a lot. So I love talking about it too.
Can you give me and our listeners a bit of a quick summary on your journey from marketing coordinator to marketing director? What has that journey looked like, and what ultimately brought you and kept you around at MyCarrier? What is it about their mission and their objective that piques your interest?
Sure. So I originally went to school for communications, broadcast comm, and started out in television at a Market 62 down in Pensacola. And from there, I got exposure to a lot of marketing concepts and ideas and things through the advertising department and through school as well. And then I got my graduate degree and started my journey in marketing at a small radio network. And I've loved doing marketing ever since. I kind of consider it like it's like a mashup of like science and art. It's like the marriage of the two, where you have to think creatively, and then in turn, like also be able to measure the things that you're doing to make sure they're successful. Ultimately, like that's our whole goal is to make companies successful and bring that to the market in an efficient and effective way.
Yeah.
I love being at MyCarrier. It's a cool company with a cool voice, and I'm grateful that the leadership team here gives me the flexibility to do some really fun, exciting things, new things um, that are a bit on the risky side, I guess, if you're looking at it from like a safe marketing perspective. But we're trucking along and doing successful things and growing a company, and it's a ton of fun.
That's awesome. And just quickly, what is the why does MyCarrier exist? Like, what problems do you solve for whom, and why do you think MyCarrier is best positioned to solve those the best potentially?
Sure. So we are in the business to help small businesses become more efficient in their shipping of LTL, which if you're not familiar with LTL, it's less than truckload shipping. So there's a lot of companies that make enough products, sell enough things to just get an entire truck and ship it from one location to another, whether that's the distribution or the store. But there's thousands and thousands and thousands of companies that ship big things, but they don't ship enough to justify a giant truck. So with less than truckload, they have lots of different carriers and providers that would be shipping things from one place to another. And historically, in order to be able to do that, you would have to either call the carriers, and most companies don't have a single carrier. They'll work with two, three, four, upwards of like 10 companies to do the same thing because they go to different regions.
Right.
So they'd either have to email that carrier and say, "Hey, I got this thing. It weighs this much. It's this big. It's going to take up this much space." And then they would send them back a quote and they would say yes. But doing that 5, 6 times for a single shipment can be very tedious. So what MyCarrier does is we allow people through technology to connect directly to their carriers with a single platform, send one request with all the same information to all of those carriers, get back all of their quotes on a single page, and then directly schedule right from the same app, which ends up like you can imagine like saving you 5 sales for every order. It's pretty significant. So I
Yeah.
think the way I like to explain it best is it's kind of like before kayak, you'd have to go to like a travel agency, or you'd have to go to like each airline website and say like, "Hey, I'm going from here to here. How much is it going to cost?" Do all the math. You'd settle for something because you were tired of searching. But when kayak came along, you send one request, "I'm going from here to there," and then they would show you all of the different options. You could schedule it right from there. So we're kind of like the kayak for LTL.
Yeah, that makes it very clear. That's awesome. When it all boils down, when all the dust settles, how can you best describe the mandate on the marketing department? So a little bit more detailed than, generate revenue, right? But what is the specific mandate? Whereas if you guys didn't exist, if you weren't performing your job right, this would be the represented gap in the business.
So there's options. So the best way I can explain it is obviously we're here to help generate revenue for the company. And in doing that, like there's a lot of different levers that companies can pull. It's marketing, there's sales, there's cold outbound from sales. There's a lot of different options. And from a marketing perspective, there's a massive gap in our industry specifically on educating small businesses on how they can change the way they do their shipping. So there's not a lot of people out there producing content that tells Joe, the small business owner, that the way your shipping department has been working and working with a single carrier for the last 5, 15 years is not the most efficient way. And you could be changing your business by allowing yourself to have more options, better options, cheaper options, whatever. Like a
Yeah.
lot of people feel like they're stuck with their carriers, or they're stuck in this place where it's very manual and tedious. They don't really understand that shipping LTL and shipping freight is not just a line item. It's not just a bill. It's not like a phone bill at the end of the day. At the end of the month, you look back and you say, "Oh, I spent this much on my phone."
Yeah.
It's an actual business lever. So the marketing department is here very specifically to create content around how those small businesses can take advantage of their shipping, not just pay for it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that is our job, 100%. We have internal video resources, we have copywriter that are amazing, and that's our mission, to educate the small business on how they can use shipping to impact their business.
Gotcha. So there are likely some tactics and strategies you deploy for sort of the awareness and the conversion side of things, but the primary bulk of your effort is in that engage section of the value journey.
Mhm.
For other businesses or other marketing leaders that are listening, that are in the same boat where their target market is not necessarily problem aware. Um,
Mhm.
what what are what are some of the specific things that you do to quickly, well, not quickly, but thoroughly make them problem aware, but then quickly pivot to making them solution aware without coming across as, because you're trying to add value, it sounds like, through the education, the teaching of these business owners on this gap in their business. But how do you do that in a genuine way and then quickly make the
Mhm.
pivot to, hey, we're here to help and this is how we facilitate conversion?
Yep. So it's kind of like a balancing act, because when you sell a product, you want to talk about your product. Like, all of our subject matter experts, like, they are 100% sold on MyCarrier as a platform. Like, and they should be. And so is marketing. But the balance comes when you're to be genuine. I think when you are selling a product and you want to educate the market, you have to give people value outside of your product. So, like, we are having conversations around how people can make their packaging a little bit more efficient, or like thinking about things outside of like just getting a quote. Like, we could talk about run run quotes all day. Run shipping is really easy with a touch of a button. Like, we could say that 800,000 times, but like, ultimately, unless you're really digging into the real problems that people have with their shipping and going beyond like your specific solution, like, you can't cast that broad of a net.
Right.
So, like, ultimately, like, we're talking about like, we had a video where one of our subject matter experts talked about a thing called a crush cone. Like, we don't have anything to do with crush cones, but like, it adds value because they understand, oh, if I do this specific thing, it could be costing me X number of dollars more on this very potentially smaller costing shipment, and it's not getting you ultimately that much more value out of it.
Right.
So it's like, you have to talk about things that are that are within your wheelhouse, but also outside of your product alone.
Yeah.
And if you can create valuable content, like, people will come back, they'll consume more, and eventually they're going to look at your company and go, yeah, these guys know what they're talking about, and I need this thing that they're doing, so I'm going to come to them for it very specifically, because there's a massive amount of trust there. And
Totally.
especially with small businesses, like, trust is a big thing, because a lot of their, like, they probably don't have that many vendors, and the vendors they do have, they've probably either worked with for a long time or have some sort of relationship with. So, like, ultimately, we're like generating trust at scale.
So I got you. That's great. So when you're in a scenario where your target market is potentially not problem aware or not enough to convert, it's about, I'm hearing like very customer centricity, looking at
Mm,
their world, being a part of their world, and then establishing a foundation from a conversion standpoint so that when they are ready to move, you're there, right? And you've developed
yep.
that. Or how does that, that's interesting because a guy, SEO, paid search, this is very performance marketing, sort of instant gratification. How do you and your team remain patient in that demand generation, while you still have very real revenue targets that you need to hit?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's it's kind of like, when you have a specialty, it's easy to make that specialty the tool you always choose.
Right.
So, like, I can create thousands of MQLs all day long. Like, that's pretty easy in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's easy to go and pay money to be in search and things like that. Now, you can argue like on the efficiency of that for, all day long, and how you're actually executing on it. But like, ultimately, it, picking a tool because it's your favorite tool is not the right thing. Like, I'm not going to go, I need to take the lugs off of my car's wheels with this like circle saw. Like, you can't always be the saw guy. Like, if you're the saw guy, like, you're not going to get things done. and sometimes you have to be realistic with yourself and say like, hey, this just isn't working. And like that ended up happening maybe a couple of months ago. We're not in paid search at all. Like we don't have a paid search at budget at all,
Yeah.
because like ultimately I had to go and say like, let's look at what the market looks like. Let's look at what the small businesses understand and are actually looking for, and like ultimately trace all of that down from acquisition to like actual closing. And if it's not there, then like stop using this all.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
So how did in your journey, how did you turn, and I'm making an assumption here that you were a pure SEO and search guy, you didn't like anything else, but how did you transition from the circular saw guy to the holistic demand gen mindset?
so I actually came from, I've actually been a very general marketer my entire career, being going from like marketing coordinator to marketing manager to head of marketing at different organizations, and now I'm the director of marketing here at MyCarrier. So like I came from a company that was consumer goods, e-commerce, a brand,
Yeah.
and like all of that stuff like works really well for like search and for paid search, for paid ads and things like that, because they're looking for a very specific product. Like I need a handrail, or I'm looking for key clamps, or I need this very specific piece of safety equipment. That's a brand. Like that works all day long as you can optimize, and as long as you have the budget to be able to be in the right place. But like for something that's like a small business resource where the the product, so we're considered a TMS, a
Okay.
transportation management system, and that is such a broad category of things that it's hard to say like I'm going to bid on the terms for TMS and platforms and shipping platforms.
Right.
We specialize in LTL. If I am paying for search terms like shipping platform, like I could be going up against people who are very specific to ecom, who are looking for a shipping platform to ship earrings. Like, and we're not going to be helpful to them, but we're going to pay for those people to look at us,
Right.
which is a hard thing to do. So we made a decision to double down on like our organic strategy and double down, because we have in-house video resources, we have in-house writers, to double down on the things where we knew would become valuable over time,
Yeah.
and build up our muscle of creating value for audiences outside of purely direct response things.
Love it.
That could come at some point. I might need a saw in 2 months from now.
Yeah.
But like right now, like as we're building brand, we're developing the the association of what we do with our audience. Like that's not something, that's a distraction at this point. It's not valuable.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love these stories of performance marketer turned brand and customer centric, and and it's right, and ultimately to do that type of thing there needs to be buy-in across the organization. Can you tell me a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about a shared vision that folks outside the marketing department they believe in the strategy, they understand that it
Mm-hmm.
will sometimes create in longer cycles as it relates to conversion, but probably stronger conversion. Tell me about how marketing integrates its vision with the rest of the organization. How does that look from a dynamic standpoint?
Sure. So if you look at our LinkedIn profile, you'll see that there's not just one person talking about the product. We've
Yeah.
got people, we've got people from the sales department. A lot of the leadership team will get on and have conversations with other people within the organization about what we're doing and where we're headed as a company. And really, it's um, like you just have to show what's valuable to the audience. You have to be able to, as a marketer, to say like, here is something that is working, here's something that's not working. let's have a conversation about like what are the solutions, like what's the tool that we're going to actually use to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Right.
um, when you have people coming into the system as like a net new person, like they need to understand what the value is. And just saying like I can save you 20% on your shipping, or
Right.
I can save you X number of hours in your shipping department, like it's
No.
super uninspiring. Like they'll see that and just bounce.
Yeah.
But like if you can tell them like we see this problem in a lot of our customers, here's how our customers are solving that problem, and potentially here's how we solve that problem. That is way more inspiring of a story to kind of like help rally not just salespeople but customers around what you're doing, and
Right.
investors. And like we have carrier partners that we work very closely with. Like we're putting out content that is helpful to all the different parties that are involved in what we do, from carrier to customer, and anything in between.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. No, it,
It's a roundabout way of answering the question, but
well,
like
I think what
ultimately,
I'm
that's like,
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is that based on the fact that, and you're right, I did look at LinkedIn and everyone seems to be involved. I mean, it's clear that there's a shared buy-in to this strategy, and ultimately, people will jump on, like from other departments, will jump on that strategy when they see results, when they see it working, right? And
mhm,
but I would imagine a lot of your LTL competitors are bidding for like super inefficient, bidding for these keywords that are not relevant
mhm,
to the problem. And it's interesting for you to keep trust and faith in that strategy when your competitors are performance marketing, you know. So, anyways, that's
sure.
um
Yeah, I mean, that's always like that's always the risk, is like looking at, and if you want to stand out in the market, you kind of have to put out of your mind like we're just going to do what the other person's doing because it's safe. Like they might have like a $5 million paid budget and they're just dumping it in there. Like they may not even care about the performance of it. But when I look at it and I pull a report and I build out something that says like, hey, here's this channel, and here's how it went through our funnel, and here's the results at the end, and it's not successful, like it's not helping anyone. So like that's really what it takes, is like really digging into a specific channel to understand like what the outcomes actually are. And when I go in and I look through the self-reported attribution, and I see like saw you on YouTube, or a friend, like a friend told me about it, and like we're seeing that like all over the place, like,
yeah.
and software attribution is telling me like, oh, they found us through organic, or somehow our direct channel is growing exponentially. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, when you double your LinkedIn following in like 6 months, like that tells you you're doing something, you're communicating to the market.
Totally. And I mean, you'd always take self-reported attribution with a grain of salt too, because a lot of people are just like, yeah, whatever, just the first button, you know. So it's
We actually have an open field, so
okay, good.
whatever they say it is what it is. And then I have tools in the background, HubSpot, parsing those into different buckets, depending on what they say. And if the machine doesn't understand it, then I go and I personally bucket it myself. So
That's
I
awesome.
see every single lead that comes through.
That's great. Are you guys, this is my last strategy question, then I want to shift gears, but are you guys within the marketing function supporting equally both the demand and the supply side of this equation? So, you know, getting more companies to ship freight limited truckload, and the other side of it, getting, you know, trucks that have capacity to be a part of this network.
So we have a couple of different channels. We have a lot of partner carriers. A vast majority of the large carriers within North America use our platform, whether it's a white label or MyCarrier itself.
Okay.
So we partner with all of those major shipping channels from a trucking perspective.
Okay.
But we are not growing the LTL market per se. Like we're not encouraging small businesses to understand like how they can go from shipping parcel to LTL. They already know. They probably already know that.
Gotcha.
So we're very much into the business of optimizing small businesses LTL shipping departments.
Gotcha. But there is an end date conceivably to the customer lifetime value, because at some point, if that small business blows up and they need 6 full trucks, you will graduate them out of the program type thing.
Yep, and we see that happen.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like we're not the solution for them. Maybe we'll be one day, but
Yeah.
we're not right now.
But you
And
were
and we're
critical.
okay with that.
Yeah, and you were a critical ally in their growth journey. All right. I guess that's okay.
Yep. Yeah, we have a story on our LinkedIn profile about manatee pressure washers in Florida, and they were able to bring a new product to market because they understand their shipping at a very intimate level to where they could say like we can offer this product, but it would be beneficial to us to be able to offer free shipping. They wouldn't be able to do that if they didn't understand how much shipping was costing them.
Totally.
So like it's a pretty cool story. And like those are the types of things where eventually like they might be such a large distributor they don't need our product anymore, and that's a good day for them, a sad day for us, but like ultimately like that's their business and we're a tool to help them grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Um, Not every marketing department and function and system is perfect. If you could wave a magic wand, what's one area of optimization or one area that you're like, shit, man, we got to fix this? I mean, between you and me and everyone else listening.
I, I think uh again like we come back to it might be like an easy thing, but like eventually we're going to have to get into like paid channels to help us scale much more quickly, and understanding how to do that more efficiently is something that I think about all the time.
Mm,
Understanding like where we can go next, new channels, like is TikTok something we're going to invest in? Like, is this specific channel something we're going to go double down on? Like, and
yeah.
the nightmare of like trying to figure out a baby channel is it's like it's like raising a baby. Like it's going to be messy, it's going to be dirty, it's going to be there's going to be like growing pains. But yeah,
What would be
getting
what
into
would
new
be the
channels.
reason? What would be the reason that MyCarrier would decide to convert over to not convert over, but welcome into the marketing mix paid amplification channels? Why would that happen if you have the success with the organic, the storytelling, the
Mhm.
centricity? Yeah,
I think it would be the opportunity to scale.
right.
So like when um when when we're able to the opportunity to scale more quickly because our audience is there and searching for the right things. So here's an example. Like um a lot of times the most efficient keywords for a company in paid is brand,
Right.
generally, because some of those larger companies might be better known and brand like MyCarrier, and some of the things we were running into from like a brand search perspective is there's a couple other things on the market that are well established that have a similar naming structure, and one of those is like a baby carrier. So like when you look at like your brand keywords and they're inefficient in paid, and this is actually something I was thinking about on the way in to the office this morning, is like at some point your brand becomes well known because of the other things that you're doing in the market, that you have the ability to then capture like those branded keywords and some of the other search terms.
Right.
And there is a certain amount of trust that has to happen within paid search in order for that person to even click on the ad.
So to make sure I
Does
understand,
that make sense? That was a
no,
lot. That was a
totally.
lot of words.
And you have the experience and the expertise on this. So just to make sure I understand for brands that are in kind of the same boat as you guys, is the idea that when you do jump into search and bring that in the mix, do you first want to own your brand search, or do you want to first go after other keywords, or which comes first? Is it brand first, get that settled and solidified with proper search volume and that kind of thing, and click through rate, and then move on to industry related keywords, or is it the opposite for you guys?
So ultimately, I think, and some of this has to do with your structure as a company as well. If I'm bringing 2,000 leads in a month, if a sales department is not able to field that many leads, and you're not structured in a way that makes sense, like it doesn't matter how much money you're spending in paid search if the organization is not structured to do that. Like we're very hands-on company. We take a lot of care in our customers, and like if ultimately it's super inefficient to pay for that many
Right.
incoming leads.
Right.
So like really it's like as we scale and grow the organization, like the the strategy might change or might be a different type of strategy. Like we have a sales department that's handling a lot of leads from a lot of different sources, whether that's partner carriers, whether that's cold outbound. They're handling a lot of leads. And what I want to do as a marketing department is be very efficient in who we're actually handing off.
Right.
And so it's the balance of too many leads or the right amount of leads.
Yeah.
And to me, like if I'm going to start getting back into paid, it's probably going to be at a brand level.
Right.
Like the brand has developed um, enough momentum within the market that we need to start showing up number one, or like competing with other larger companies that might be bidding on our brand.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, as a marketing leader, what do you rely on as your core strengths, or I often say, what are your superpowers as a marketing leader, that you go back to time and time again to get you through tricky times, either with colleague conversations or with setting direction or with holding accountability? What are you relying on as your superpowers as a marketing leader?
Sure. I think my superpower is probably curiosity and caring. Like I don't know if I'm gonna alliterate that. Like curiosity and caring is like curiosity is what drives you to want to understand the things that you're doing and whether or not they're working.
Yeah.
And if you're curious enough, you're going to dig deep enough to discover whether or not something's working.
Mm.
And then you're going to have the curiosity enough to try a new thing or get into a new channel or understand something better. And a lot of people don't have that. Like some people aren't curious enough to try new things or take the risk to do something different. They're just not curious enough to make that happen. And then like caring is like my team is the most important thing that I come and into every day at work. Like as a marketing leader, like I'm like they're my customer.
Yeah.
Like they come to work every day to help execute a plan that we've put in place together. And like if I don't care about them at a personal level, like I won't understand like maybe why there might be a performance issue,
Right.
or I won't understand like the real reason why they come to work every day. And like I won't be able to understand like how to one motivate them and two how to help them honestly. Like I need to be caring enough to be able to help them accomplish what I'm asking them to do. And if I don't know about them, then I can't help them. I can't motivate them. And ultimately like it becomes like uh a transactional relationship with which is not a good place to be. I don't believe.
Need more marketing leaders like you, man. I think that is a word of encouragement for all marketing leaders listening. And I think you're right. I mean, if we don't understand the person behind the role and behind the accountabilities, then what are we leading, right? Are we just dictating targets and numbers? And so awesome, man. Thanks for doing that, because it's another sort of representation of what we need to be, and how we need to lead and serve. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like it's like um it's like just marketing without consideration for customers and how they want to do things. Like it's the very same thing. Like
oh,
if you don't give a rip about customers, like you're never going to be able to understand what drives them. And it's like it's the same thing with the people who you work with. Like you
yeah.
got to understand them.
Tell me a little bit as we wrap up here. Tell me a little bit about when you close your eyes on the drive in. Well, hopefully not closing your eyes on when you close your eyes and think about.
Someday,
Yeah, yeah.
someday with self-driving, maybe I'll be able to close my eyes.
When you close your eyes and think about the vision and the future and the down the road, what comes into clarity for you for MyCarrier and for your team? What does evolution look like in your desired state?
Yeah, so we're heading towards being, and there's a movement in this to like unify platforms into a single resource. And like MyCarrier, like we're on that trajectory to become like the platform that small businesses use to optimize everything in their shipping world,
Right,
which in turn optimizes their business.
right.
So like we're heading down the path to become the single tool for small business and all of their shipping needs.
And within their
And
shipping
ultimately,
needs,
like,
you only play a small role within their overarching shipping needs. So like okay,
yep. So there's like a massive opportunity for us. Like a lot of the people who ship LTL also ship parcel. So like I don't know if that's going to be a piece of like what we're doing as a whole, but we want to be the platform that small businesses can rely on for all of their shipping needs.
that's awesome.
It's an aspirational goal. Like it's a big thing. And
Yeah,
ultimately, like we're going to need a lot of variety of people who understand a lot of varieties of business types and business needs to be able to do that. And from a marketing perspective, like that just means we're going to have to be super flexible.
that's awesome. Phil, great chatting with you. Like I mentioned before, I think there's 15 things we could go into for an hour or more. But
Oh yeah.
stay part of the community together. And again, just really want to emphasize that your customer centricity, keep going, even though competitors may not be doing that. Your colleague or your team member centricity, keep doing that, because it sets the precedent for other marketing leaders. And I look forward to being a part of your community going forward.
Awesome. Thanks. It was a good conversation.
That